Hello everybody, it's me, Jason Hart. In this video, we'll explore some of the many major key roles of serotonin throughout the human body. In addition, we'll learn what happens when there's not enough of this vital neurotransmitter to go around, and oppositely what happens when we have too much. After a brief explanation of a few of the things that go wrong in the presence of a serotonin imbalance, hopefully you'll realize the clinical importance of the molecule itself, along with some of the drugs that sway its bioavailability. To help break that down, here's a page of the topics you'll have knowledge on at the end of the video. What constitutes a molecule of serotonin? Where serotonin works and why it's important? How the body uses what it has to generate serotonin? The action of serotonin in the central nervous system? Where and why it's needed in the body beyond the central nervous system? The 3 different routes the molecule can take after use, and a brief summary of the drugs that influence serotonin levels. If you want a visual of how this presentation is put together, go ahead and pause the video now. You can find a link to the outline in the video description below. Before we get into all the wild functions of serotonin, it's a good idea to get familiar with its makeup and shape. The 3D molecular figure you're looking at is composed of carbons in black, hydrogens in gray, nitrogens in blue, and oxygens in red. That gives us a molecular formula of C10H12N2O. Isn't it incredible that an only somewhat unique arrangement of 4 common elements stuck to a 6-carbon base gives rise to something we really call 5-hydroxytryptamine? Now, you might be wondering what 5-hydroxytryptamine actually is. Throughout academia, research facilities, and medical settings, serotonin can go by many names, and it does. The narrator pretty much calls it whatever they want to call it. I'll be using the 3 most common designations throughout. 5-hydroxytryptamine, as I just said, or 5-HT for short, or just simply serotonin. Now that we've learned the chemical makeup of the molecule, let's learn what it does in the body. Discovered in 1948, serotonin is still a relatively new discovery in the world of science, but since then we've learned a lot about its effects in the central nervous system and the digestive tract, among other places. In the central nervous system, it has an effect on sleep, mood, appetite, happiness, and overall sense of well-being. Somewhat unique for a neurotransmitter, serotonin has effects on digestion, appetite, and blood clotting beyond the central nervous system. If you're not already convinced that the molecule is incredibly important to humans, let me try to convince you. First, let's take a look at what happens when our bodies don't produce enough serotonin. Low levels of this molecule are linked to major depressive disorder and a range of anxiety disorders. Depression affects a significant number of both adults and adolescents, 7.1% and 13.3% respectively. When it comes to anxiety, you might be interested to learn that a shortage of serotonin can result in generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, or even social anxiety disorder. When serotonin levels rise above a certain threshold, a patient enters what is called serotonin syndrome. With all the bad that goes along with the shortage of serotonin, you might think that having a bunch of it around is a good thing, but it's actually a health emergency. Symptoms of having too much serotonin in your system include changed mental perception, for example, anxiousness, irritability, and restlessness, motor hyperactivity, like shivering, tremors, and spasms, or CNS hyperactivity, like sweating, fever, and high heart rate and blood pressure. Now that we've learned some of the effects of having too much or too little serotonin in the body, let's see how we actually get it there. The synthesis cascade of serotonin involves 3 main chemical species. Between the first and second is a hydroxylation via tryptophan hydroxylase, and between the second and third species is a decarboxylation via decarboxylase. We begin with a molecule you're probably familiar with, tryptophan. From there, an enzyme named tryptophan hydroxylase catalyzes a reaction known as hydroxylation, which adds a hydroxyl group to the 5 position of the 6-carbon ring on tryptophan, resulting in 5-hydroxytryptophan. In the second step, we witness a decarboxylation reaction facilitated by decarboxylase, which is an amino acid enzyme. This enzyme cleaves the bond, holding the carboxylic acid to the rest of the molecule. Once decarboxylase has done its job, we finally have serotonin. Let's take a closer look at what 5-hydroxytryptamine does in the central nervous system. After serotonin leaves the presynaptic neuron, it makes its way to a few different types of receptors. We have the 1A, the 1B, and the 2A. The 1A regulates sleep, temperature, appetite, and anxiety, while 2A has behavioral effects on learning. 5-HT is just as important beyond the CNS as it is in it. It has effects on digestion, tissue repair, and sexual behavior, including appetite reduction after eating, vasoconstriction upon injury, and sexual desires. One of the main treatments for depression has a direct effect on serotonin concentration within the brain. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs for short, reduce the activity of one of the reduction pathways of 5-HT in the brain. Let's take a look at the two types of reduction pathways, degradation and reuptake. The reuptake pathway saves serotonin, essentially recycling it, while MAO breakdown and melatonin are two degradation pathways. Reuptake of a neurotransmitter is defined as the reabsorption by the cell that originally secreted it. The molecule is recycled and can be released just as it was before. An enzyme called monoamine oxidase also breaks down serotonin. MAO inhibitors are another type of antidepressant. The second degradation pathway creates melatonin, which is a hormone that makes you tired. This takes place only in the pineal gland. Speaking of tired, you're probably tired of hearing me talk. Well, I'm done. Thank you for watching.